In this video, I'm going to teach you how to sell more digital products online, specifically if you're a coach or a consultant. So if you're in the education space, you're selling digital education information, then this video is going to be for you because I'm going to show you how to sell a lot more of it. Now, who am I? My name is Jack and I run a marketing agency. And over the last few years, our agency has generated millions of pounds in this space selling online education. We've taken clients from literally £0 in revenue all the way up to over £10 million in transactions, just selling education online using Facebook ads, Google ads, funnels, and emails. And I'm going to go through that exact process with you. I'm going to go through everything from start to finish. This is how we approach this for every single one of our clients in this industry. And hopefully you can get a lot of value from this video. Now, this information is going to apply both to coaches, consultants, course creators, essentially anyone who's selling education or information online. Now, you might have a done with you consultancy model, or you might just have a completely hands-off coaching program that you pre-recorded. That's totally fine. It doesn't really matter which one you are. This video and this information is going to apply to both because the sales process is basically identical. There's just a few little tweaks. So I'm going to go through everything and you'll see that this can apply to you whether you're selling an online course or a more consultancy-based offer. So before we get into the tactical steps, the first thing we need to do is kind of map out the customer journey. So there's really two main customer journeys that are going to have a very different path. So it's worth mentioning them at the beginning of the video. So for some of our clients, they're going to sell directly off the page. Now, what I mean by that is we're running ads, we're sending them through to a funnel, they may be watching a video sales letter, they're going through the process, and then they're purchasing directly on the page. So that could be a product up to $1,000, for example. They're just buying it off the page. They're not actually speaking to a sales rep. They're not speaking to the business owner. Now, this is really valuable, and of course, it's very time efficient. It means you don't have to have a huge payroll or commissioning staff, and you don't have to be managing that entire process. So it works very, very well when it works. But of course, there is a ceiling to how much you can charge when you don't have that human touch point. So the second model is if you're leveraging a sales team, and you may already be doing this. So this is where either yourself or you have a team of people who are speaking to the leads. So people are booking into your calendar via a book a call funnel, or perhaps you're collecting leads and then outbound calling them. Doesn't really matter. You have a team essentially that are talking to people prior to that transaction. And that system can work very, very well, especially if you are higher ticket. So if you're selling something for 6K, 8K, 10K, you're going to probably need to speak to people. They're not just going to be buying that directly off the page in most cases. So that's really where you can decide which model is best for you. And you may already have one of these models in place. And if you do, that's totally fine. You can just skip to the next step in the video. But essentially, the considerations that I would have is if the product is a very low ticket item, so if it's like a sub £200, I just wouldn't even consider selling it over the phone. If it's above like £1,000, then yeah, I would maybe consider introducing sales reps depending on the complexity. And if you have additional upsells and things like that, continuity programs, etc. Basically, if it's that kind of sits around that sort of like, sub £1,000 price point, then definitely consider selling it directly off the page. There are other considerations like the industry you're in and also how niche your product is, because if your product is extremely niche, you can also charge more because there's going to be maybe less solutions in that niche. And you also maybe are going to run out of people to sell to essentially. So if you're in a really small, like highly constrained niche, then you're not going to want to sell volume at low price points because essentially you're going to burn through a lot of the buyers that are ready to actually transact with you. So it would make more sense to go higher ticket and therefore introducing potentially that human touch point via a sales call. So there's a few considerations there. I'm not going to tell you exactly which one to go for. It would depend really on, like I say, many different factors, but price point is going to be one of the key factors. Now, regardless of which method and kind of customer journey that people are taking, the whole process is to build value. So if that value can be built without the need for a human touch point, amazing. However, higher price points and different products, people need to speak to other people. For example, my service, I run a marketing agency. People are not just going to start signing up for retainers for multiple £1,000s per month off the page. They need to speak to me. They need to probably meet some of my team members. They need to ask questions. They need to have me demonstrate that I actually know what I'm talking about before they're going to trust my company. And that's a really important step that wouldn't happen just through, the words on a page, for example. So in my industry, people need to speak to us. However, for some of our clients, we have managed to sell, hundreds of thousands of pounds per month of product directly off the page in the info space. So again, products all the way up to about £1,000 per product. And we've been able to sell that directly off the page. So both systems can work. It's going to come down to those different factors essentially. Okay, so you've got your customer journey. So it's time to look at the other parts of the funnel that we're going to need in order to really ramp up the marketing side. So we're going to need traffic. Now, we get traffic through Meta ads, Google ads. And when I say Google, it's really going to be YouTube traffic, because although search can be effective, for most of our clients who are selling education products, online courses, etc., we're using YouTube ads as the primary source. So when I say Google, most of the traffic is going to be spent on YouTube. It's really effective. And then obviously Meta is going to include Facebook and Instagram. So we're going to need traffic from somewhere. And like I say, we use paid traffic. We're a paid traffic agency. We don't do much in terms of organic. Paid traffic can be extremely quick to scale up. It can work very effectively. And typically businesses that are selling education online, there's a huge margin. So again, it lends itself very, very well to being able to scale quite aggressively once we have something that's working. The next part is funnels. So obviously we've got to send that traffic somewhere. So that's going to be like the landing pages, the VSL funnels, the book a call funnels. It could be webinars, things like that. So I'm going to go through all of that in a minute. And then the final step is email automation. It doesn't just have to be email. We also use WhatsApp automation, SMS automation for some of our clients. It depends if it's like a book a call funnel or whether or not it's a VSL. Sometimes we're not collecting phone numbers on the front end because it'd be more expensive per lead to do that, and we're not actually using them in the sales cycle. For our clients that have like appointment setters, sales reps that are booking calls in, all of that stuff we're going to be using. We're going to be collecting phone numbers on the front end so we can use them throughout the funnel. So yeah, funnels are a really important step, and the email automation and the kind of automation in general is that third pillar that's going to tie everything together and nurture people all the way across the line, essentially. So let's just review the framework, the kind of blueprint, if you like, for each of these different customer journeys in terms of like the number of steps and how it's actually going to work. So when you're selling like a lower ticket item, this could be anything from an ebook through to like a couple of £100, a couple of $100 course, all the way up to something that's like £1,000, $1,000 course, and you're selling off the page. If you're going down that route, what it's going to look like in terms of a customer journey and the sort of process is it's going to start with an advert. So we're going to have some type of advert, mostly a video advert, especially if you are the face of the brand. So if you're the business owner or you have like someone who is the face of the brand and they are going to be the ones creating the content. If that's the case, then I would recommend using video ads primarily, and that's what we've seen work well. So we're going to have an advert. It's going to be on YouTube. It's going to be on Facebook. It's going to be on Instagram. That advert is going to send people somewhere, and that somewhere is going to be a funnel. And that is where we're going to collect the information. Now, for a lower ticket item, where we're basically selling it directly off the page, that is going to be some sort of trust building funnel. So we can't just send people directly to a checkout page. We need to send them to a place where they can learn a bit more about the business. So this would be something like a video sales letter. So they opt in on the first page. On the second page, they watch the content, and the video could be 30, 45 minutes long. It's not just explaining about your proposition, it's giving real value. So you want to teach them something, which is how we hook them on the front end. We say, learn about this thing for free. Then we're exchanging that piece of information for their time, all while they're building trust. So the more, the time they're spending with you, they're building trust with you in that process. And then at the end, we're pitching them the offer for the upsell. So we've given them some real value. We've built a relationship with them over 30, 45 minutes. And now we're going to transition them into actually paying for that next step in the process. The key is it is not a 45-minute sales pitch. Although that is weaved into the process, we don't want to just be selling to them from the beginning to the end because they're not going to be interested. We want to actually give them value. Okay, we need to demonstrate that we know what we're talking about. We need to give them value through that VSL. So that's an example of one of those funnels. And then what would happen off the back of that is once they've watched the content, they would take the next step. And that next step, if they're buying on the page, would probably be to go to a long form sales page where they can learn more about the, kind of finalize, learn about the product. And then they would go to a checkout page and transact with you. So essentially you've got ads as the first step, you've got an opt-in page, you've got a VSL page, you've got a sales page, a checkout page, and a thank you page. So you kind of got 6 steps to that process if they're buying directly off the page. Now, in some cases, we can shorten that a little bit. We maybe don't need a sales page. We can maybe have the sales page and the checkout page combined. Again, it really does depend on the price point. And if it's something like an ebook, we probably don't even need to have a VSL. So instead, we can just have the information about the product directly on the page. So it would go something like advert, basically sales page, and there may be some video content on there, but it's not going to be like a full opt-in VSL. And that could have like a 2-step checkout page on it, where they are entering the details, and then on the next page they're paying, or the next part of the form they're paying. So we still capture their lead information. And then it's going to go to a thank you page or an upsell page where you're trying to get them onto whatever your kind of higher ticket option is after that. So that's the sort of typical blueprint, if you like, for a lower ticket funnel. Now, in terms of a higher ticket funnel where you're selling off the page, it's going to look pretty similar. So again, we're sending people from an advert, we're sending them through to a landing page. Now, if it's a very simple book a call funnel, We may embed the video sales letter at the top of that page, no opt-in, and then have a calendar directly underneath. And we've seen this work very, very well. So it's just going to be VSL calendar. And all they're going to do is they're just going to land on that page. They're going to watch the content, no need to opt in, and they're just going to book a call if they're interested. This is a great funnel type that we've used, and it's going to essentially just get people booking into the calendars for your sales team to take those calls and then transact with them over your online call or Google Meet or whatever it's going to be. So that is, again, a really effective book a call system. There's other variations of that as well. So you may want to add an opt-in page. Now, some of the nuances here is if it's like a B2B product, I'd recommend starting without an opt-in page. If it is quite a niche product as well, I would recommend having it without an opt-in page. So essentially, if it's going to cost you quite a lot to generate a lead, I wouldn't have an opt-in page. However, if the VSL is actually quite long and it's really valuable and it's something where you can collect leads at quite a low cost, it actually makes sense to have that first page put in. So it would go ads, opt-in, VSL with the calendar booking underneath, thank you page. And the reason why is because then you can follow up with them with email. Whereas if you don't do that, the only people you can follow up with are the ones that book, which obviously limits the total number of people you can be getting back in front of. And it means if you're not getting a good cost per call, all of that ad spend is kind of, there's a lot of wastage there. Whereas if you have that opt-in, you can get back in front of them. So it really just depends. Like I say, B2B, I probably wouldn't have an opt-in. If it's super niche or it's going to be super expensive to generate a lead, I wouldn't have an opt-in. If it's a little bit more mass market, we can get a lot of people through the top of that funnel, and the VSL is really valuable and people are going to be opting in for that information, it makes sense to have that opt-in page at the beginning. Okay, so you should now have the blueprint as to whether or not you're going high ticket, low ticket, if you're selling off the page or via a sales call. So you should kind of know that exact system now and the funnel steps that kind of go into it. So let's get into the tactics of each of the platforms, each of the processes, each of those building blocks I kind of mentioned. So traffic, funnels, email, and let's talk about how to maximize them. So I'm going to start at the top with traffic. So we focus, like I mentioned, on Google and Meta. So I'm just going to give you the kind of best practices and tips that we have used for running Meta ads and running Google ads in the info product space. So let's start with Meta. The most important thing, and this applies both to Meta and to YouTube, is going to be that ad creative. Okay, so the actual thing that people see is going to be the most important part and where you want to be putting all of your effort. So you want to be looking at your competitors. You'll be looking at your market in general. You want to be looking at people in adjacent markets and kind of different industries, but are still sort of relevant or you can take ideas from. And you want to be looking at their ad scripts. You want to be looking at how long their ads have been running. You want to be using tools like that, and I have other videos on my channel on how to kind of do competitor research. But you want to be doing quite a bit of competitor research to really find out what is working well for your competitors or people in similar industries. You also then want to be spending a lot of time mapping out those scripts. You want to be spending time scripting the ads. You want to make sure that the filming of that ads is really high quality. Anything you can do to elevate yourself and elevate your brand when you're filming content is going to help. Okay, so it's not like everything has to be the highest quality. I'm not saying that, but the higher quality and the more you can iterate that to make it better, the better results are going to be essentially. And that comes down to the editing style, that comes down to audio quality, video quality, everything like that. And also the words you're saying, like the actual script itself, is going to be super important. So mapping all of those things out is going to have a huge impact. So that applies, like I say, to both Meta and Google. I'm not going to go into how to script ads. I may do other videos on that, but just know that that is going to be a really important factor. The next factor is going to be targeting. So, a lot of people are going to think that you need to be very detailed, especially if you're in a small niche, you need to be super detailed with your targeting. That is not the case. So with Meta ads, you want to just go broad targeting. We've seen that work extremely well, even for some of our clients that are in very small niches. So like even within like quite niche business to business industries, if they're, in certain, just really kind of small, I'm not going to get into the specifics, but really small niches, we've still seen broad targeting work very, very well. So essentially that just allows Meta to match your content with people who are interested in that content without you needing to tell it, go after people who like this specific thing. And that works extremely well. So basically broad targeting is going to be the best option. The third best practice on Meta is going to be to optimize for quality, not just quantity of leads. Again, there's another video on my channel where I go through kind of like lead quality versus lead quantity and lead cost. And you really want to make sure that you are, especially if you're doing like a book or call funnel, or even to be fair, if you're doing like a VSL, you want to be optimizing for people that are engaging with the content post just opting in. So a great example is one of our clients, we for years just optimized for a lead event. Okay, so anyone who opted in for the funnel to watch the video sales letter, we would just, optimize for that objective. Over time, we saw that the lead to sale percentage dropped a lot. Okay, so at the beginning, it was like something like 2% or some, around there. And then by the end, it was like under 1%, it was like 0.8, 0.7%. Now, this was a huge problem because essentially, for every 100 leads, we were getting 2 sales, which worked out very profitably for this client at the time. However, then, towards the end of running that system, we're still working with the client, but at the end of running that system, it was like a 0.8. So we were getting like, less than 1 sale for every 100 leads generated on the top of the funnel. And this was for, many reasons. We've been running this funnel for years, but essentially what happened is the lead to sell had reduced, and therefore overall the quality of leads that we were getting into the funnel had also reduced. So what we did is we started optimizing for people who watched the video 10 minutes through. So I had a delayed event would trigger once someone was on that page for 10 minutes. And that is the signal that Meta would get, and Google would also get the signal to say, look, this is a high quality lead. So this is someone who has not just opted in, but this is someone who's opted in and stuck around for 10 minutes. And therefore we want more people like that. And then the system is going to optimize towards those types of people versus just people who opt in and never consume our content. Now, we also validated this through a range of different tracking methods, but essentially within the CRM that they were using, we had a tag that would also be attributed to them at the same time. So for example, after that 10 minutes elapsed and someone had consumed the content, they would get a tag in the CRM saying high quality lead. And then what I did was I looked at every single sale that came through over like a 2-week period, and I matched up, okay, well, how many people have the sales that came through, also had the high quality lead tag, and it was basically like 99%. So I was like, okay, fine, it's definitely the right signal to be given the system. And you always want to validate this stuff, because if you don't validate it and you just assume, oh, okay, well, someone who watches 20 minutes of the video must be a higher quality lead than someone who watches like 5 minutes. Well, that's not necessarily true. Like, yeah, sure, logically it's true, and I'm sure 90% of the time that would play out, but you want to be validating like that hypothesis by actually tagging people in your CRM and then making sure that the people who buy are the people that have that tag. Else, you're just kind of guessing. So make sure you basically validate stuff like that as you go through and test. But optimizing for quality over quantity is definitely going to be a factor that I would recommend doing. And again, that's both in terms of YouTube and also or Google in general. But obviously we're talking mainly about YouTube and also Meta. So in terms of YouTube ads, a couple of things that are specific that's well worth mentioning. First is you want to make sure that, again, creative is going to be one of the most important things. So focus on your creative. Again, you want to be optimizing for your high quality lead events. In terms of targeting, I would also recommend using some custom segments. So don't just rely on broad targeting in the same way. Testing the two against each other. I've seen that some custom segments can also work extremely well versus just running open targeting on YouTube. So that's the kind of a little bit of a difference. On Meta, I would just do broad from the beginning. But on YouTube, we typically test both audiences, and custom segments can be highly effective as well. Okay, let's move on to funnels. So you've got your traffic, you've got people coming through, you've got your adverts, you've got some of the best practices set up. Now you need to send them somewhere. So that's going to be your funnel. So I'm going to go through a couple of different funnel types that we've seen work well. And these are definitely ones that I would consider testing. So first is a VSL. I've mentioned it loads throughout this video. Essentially, it's a video sales letter funnel. So people opt in, they consume content, they watch a video, and they take the next step with you, whether that's book a call or buy the product, doesn't matter. These are very, very effective funnels that are working very well. So video sales letter, definitely worth considering for your business. Book a call funnel, like I mentioned, so opt-in page or no opt-in page, and then a video sales letter or some sort of information, followed by booking a call directly on that page. Again, great funnel type that's worked really, really well. The third type of funnel would be a lead magnet funnel. So this is where, again, you have an opt-in page, but rather than them opting in for a video, they're opting in to download something. So perhaps it's like a PDF download or some sort of lead magnet. Doesn't really matter, but it's just something tangible that you're going to give them in exchange for their email address or their phone number. And then on the next page, you're going to try and get them to take the next step. So it could be booking a call, it could be watching a video about an upsell, it could be buying an ebook. It doesn't really matter, but you're taking them through the journey. And again, lead magnets can work extremely well. It's all about value. So if you can communicate the value through video, then I recommend doing that. If you can actually give them something that is a tangible asset for them to have through a lead magnet, again, that's going to work incredibly well. So two options there really. Just depends what you how you can communicate the value in the best way and what suits your niche and what type of product you're selling or information that you're selling. The other type of funnel that's really effective would be a webinar funnel. So a VSL is almost like an evergreen webinar in the sense that it's just going to sit there and you don't have to be live talking every single time. You can do other kind of evergreen webinars where they appear to be live, but they're actually not. We've not used those extensively for our clients. We mostly either do like a pre-recorded training and we make it obvious that it's a pre-recorded training, or we do a live webinar, and live webinars are very effective. Now, there's quite a lot of differences because If you're running like just an evergreen funnel, when you're spending your ad spend, when you're scaling up, you're kind of spending and making. So you spend like whatever 5K and you're making back 10K. So you spend and you make. Whereas with a live webinar, you spend and then you have to get people to show up, and then you make all the money after the event has happened, or kind of the day of the event and a few days following. So for example, you might spend 50K or 100K getting people to your webinar. And you need to make sure that your like tech stack, your processes are very slick so that you don't have people not show up, else you just wasted all your money. So you need to make sure you know your numbers. I'll probably do another video entirely on how to do live webinars successfully, because we've done them for years for our clients. But yeah, there's a lot of processes that go into that, but you need to make sure it's executed correctly. But if it works and you have the right team in place to kind of do this for you, then webinars can be really effective because it's live, it's current, people are opting in there. They can ask questions and things like that. And you can do Q&A and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, webinars and live webinars are very, very effective, and I would definitely recommend considering them. My honest opinion is start with something that's evergreen, build up some traction, build up some revenue. Once it's working, then start doing regular webinars. So it's kind of like an additional add-on versus like the core strategy, if you like, because then you have that consistent revenue building up, and then you can have these spikes through webinars, and that can work extremely well. Okay, so we're now going to look at the final part, which is email automation. So you've got a funnel, you've got your ads, you've got people going through the process, but then how do you keep in front of them? Well, for a lot of info product businesses, you're going to have a slightly longer lead to sell time. So what I mean by this is someone's going to opt in today, but they're not actually going to buy from you for like maybe 7 days or 14 days or sometimes 30 days. It just depends. So you may already know what your average lead to sell time is. If you are tracking these numbers and you have some ad spend running at the moment. If you're completely new, you might not know these numbers. That's absolutely fine. But what we want to do is we want to, first of all, get a baseline so we understand what our lead to sell time is. And then we're going to want to, one, try and decrease that over time, but also just account for it. So, if we know that our average lead to sell time is 7 days, we don't want to just have someone opt in, consume our content, and then have nothing for 7 days, because they'll just drop off. So what we want to do is nurture them. And we do that through email. So as soon as someone comes in the top of the funnel, and that could be booking a call if that's your first touch point, or it could be becoming a lead and opting in, we want to drop them into a nurture sequence where they're getting emails that basically build a relationship with them and communicate the value of your business and give them more additional free value so they trust and like you even more. Now, a few tips for emails that we've seen work well, specifically for selling info products. So they don't need to be overly designed. A lot of the time you can just do very simple plain text emails, especially if it's your personal brand and you're sending them from yourself, or you have someone sending them on your behalf, because it seems, it comes across very authentic. People don't need it to be ultra high-end, ultra designed. It's ultimately about the content. It's not just about the look and feel of the email. And we've done A/B tests of really nice designed emails and then just plain text, and they perform essentially the same, or sometimes the plain text outperform. So you want to keep it authentic. When they're overly designed, it looks more like a standard e-commerce business. It looks more like a business. And if you want to be sending them from yourself and making it more kind of personal and leveraging your personal brand, then plain simple emails work very, very well. The other thing I would say is don't burn your list by just making everything a sales pitch. So you want to be providing real value, as I mentioned throughout this video, via your email list. You don't want to be just, every email is not a discount, every email is not a sales email. You want to be giving them some free content, and then you want to be also asking them for the sale. And you can do you can have links in the footer of your emails so that people can find your content without you necessarily needing to pitch every single time. So you can do some that are more salesy, you can do some that are not, and you can do some that kind of have a little bit of selling in there, but it's a little bit softer. And then I would say don't just rely on automation. So once you've got your sequences, don't just think that's everything. You want to be then sending additional emails to your list as it builds up. So let's say you've got 100,000, 200,000 people on your list. You want to be sending them regular emails. You don't just want to be letting them go through the automation and then just have nothing, because they're just going to get cold and whatever. So you want to be basically following up with them again by having someone on your team writing regular emails every single week and send them out to your list. And that is going to re-trigger some of the people who have maybe just dropped off. It's going to re-engage them and get them back into the sales process. We see this all the time. Sometimes some of the sales that come through for our clients, when I look at the tracking and the attribution, I see, they opted in on an ad like a year ago or 8 months ago. And that was the first touch point. And now they're becoming a sale today. And that's because they've been sitting on our email list, and then they've been re-engaging. They've been opening emails. Maybe they then click on another ad. Maybe they go through the sales process again, and they become a sale. So timing is everything with selling high ticket, and nurturing these people through your list is going to be an essential next step. And then you don't just have to rely on email. So like I said before, you can use WhatsApp automations, you can use SMS automations. These are great for like booking reminders and things like this. So it does depend on the funnel type. If there's any sort of like sales team or human interaction, I would definitely recommend leveraging more of like WhatsApp and SMS. Of course, you have people replying. So you need to, if you're going to send anything out on these channels, you also need to make sure that you're going to have someone who can manage the replies, or you're going to lose a lot of people who are just going to basically get ignored. So make sure you have that kind of infrastructure set up. But again, that can be very effective as well. So those are the kind of building blocks, if you like. You basically need to have the top of funnel traffic, and I've gone through some of the best practices. You need to have the funnels. I've spoken about the funnels that we've used successfully. And then, of course, you need to have the automation and email. And I've mentioned some of the kind of best practices. So there's additional content that I'll be producing, and I have produced on my channel, that kind of goes through more details about each of these steps. Obviously, there's quite a lot to cover. If there's any like questions or things you want videos on, just drop comments and I'll try and film additional videos. Like I say, we have generated millions of pounds in this industry. We know exactly how to generate consistent results for clients who are selling education. And I want to share some of the information with you on these videos. So anything that I can kind of produce that will help, just drop a comment and I will film additional content on it. If you want me and my team to handle this for you and actually help put it all together, then there is a calendar booking link below in the video description where you can just book a call with me, and I'll jump on the call and go through our process with you and have a look at what you're doing now and how it can be improved. So anyway, thanks for watching the video. Hope you got some value out of it, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.